Welcome to the Contractors Live. This session is going to be all about the money map to build wealth without burnout. So the Contractors Edge Lives happens every month, and every month we've got a new topic and new training for you guys. So hope you're excited to dive in here. First things first. How's your energy? How you feeling today? Whatever's happened, take a breath, relax, and enjoy some great education, advice, plus some resources I'm going to be sharing with you today on how to get a hold of your financials. So you're going to get more financial clarity and more peace of mind from the training today. Why am I sharing this with you? So I've got 20 years of contracting experience in both subcontracting as well as general contracting, systemized dozens of general contracting companies, top to bottom, through and through. And our big purpose at Rapid Result Creator is to lead a movement towards systems, leadership, and generational wealth for contractors who want more than just staying busy. So the big picture and really making an impact and a difference in your business, in your life, and the people around you. So I'd like to start with the end in mind. What are you going to where's this going? What is the training today going to help you achieve? I want you to imagine you're running your business. Everybody's paid up to date. You got money in the bank. All your expenses are covered and financials are not even a concern for you. You're making decisions with full financial clarity. So you know your numbers, you know where the finances are at. You're not worried, you're not stressed, there's money coming in and you are sitting pretty. That's the place we want to get to so you can enjoy more time with your family, more time on vacation, more time enjoying the things. So before we get into the actual money map, which I'm going to be going over right away, I want to bring up how not managing your finances well affects your business. I'm sure you've probably been in this position. I know I have. I can remember trying to fill up gas in my truck and realizing I didn't have any money on my card to fill up gas. So I had to scrounge through my change, see if I had a couple of spare bills in my wallet to go and pay gas. And I was just thinking, like, this is ridiculous. I've got 6 figures a month running through my business, and yet I'm still in this cash crunch. How did this happen? Why am I here? And just like stressed out about money and realizing there's got to be a better way. This cannot be the way to, run a business. Something's obviously gone wrong, and you create a stressed culture. Your clients can feel it. Your employees can feel it when money's tight, when the finances aren't flowing, when invoices are off or late, or you're putting stuff ahead of time and you're robbing Peter to pay Paul and all that kind of stuff. It affects the entire culture of your business. And then when you're operating on the red line, you run into the problem where business slows down and the bills do not. You still got your overhead, you still got guys to pay, still got to pay yourself, and you run into these cash crunches that are just super difficult. Money goes missing as well, and without the right checks and balances and watching your numbers, having an eye on your numbers, is very easy for tools to go missing, materials to go missing, guys to be putting in extra hours and things like that. And you don't even realize that there's this money that's just getting burnt in your company due to mismanagement. We're not checking into things enough. Material and project delays. So this is huge. I know many contractors, myself included, I've been there where, you don't have money in the bank to pay everybody. So you start, trying to buy materials from a place that you have credit on, or you can only order materials like a few days before you need it on a project because you just don't have the cash flow or the capacity to actually manage the business properly, and your projects end up getting delayed or material is late, and it creates inefficiencies in the company just because you don't have the money that you need at the right time to purchase materials, pay people, whatever it may be. Payroll panic at the end of the month, getting to payroll, realizing you got to send checks and direct deposits out to your workers or sub trades, and there's not enough money in the bank. What do you do? So we definitely want to avoid that. Stuck in debt. I've been here as well, where you have some rough times. Maybe you mismanaged the money, or you had a project that went sideways, whatever it may be, and you extend your lines of credit, then you extend your credit cards, then you start looking for, loans from the bank or what have you. You get high interest loans, and it's just a downward spiral. The easiest way to get out of debt is to stop digging, and you need to set the bar and start working your way back out of that, because once you get in that debt cycle, it is a very downward spiral. And why I say the downward silence spiral is because this is something, as a business owner, as people, we don't want the world to know that we have, money issues, or we've taken on a whole bunch of debt, or, the business from the marketing side. Every business on the planet looks amazing from the marketing, typically speaking, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of chaos, a lot of panic, a lot of can be debt trouble and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons why the financial side can be so stressful. Money is something that you need to get comfortable about. You need to be comfortable talking with it, not necessarily talking to everybody about, issues that may be happening with the money, but as far as like the important people in your life or coming to terms and being real as far as like, I have this issue. This is what's happened. We need to change, talk with whoever you need to talk with and just be able to, attack this and not just to try to, take the burden and do everything yourself. And then collection roulette, where this is the robbing Peter to pay Paul sort of thing, where you maybe have collection agencies or, payments are due and you're stretched here, stretched there. And it's like you're always just sort of flipping the buck over to try to keep everybody sort of happy. And it's a pain in the ass. And as you know, like this type of stuff just really ruins business. Business should be fun. You should be winning. You should be making money. And it just builds this beautiful culture. But when there's money issues or your money is not managed properly, you don't understand your financials, that is one of the big killers of business and makes business go from fun to the living hell, essentially. It sucks for sure. So I'm going to help you get out of here. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that with the profit map. So this is keeping things as simple as possible, but these are the real three big functions of the business that you need to get right in order to find the treasure, find your money, and this is a map to get there. So we're going to be walking through all of these. We're going to start with manage. So how to manage your finances, how to manage the accounts receivable, accounts payable, all that thing. Make sure that the system side of the financial business is strong and getting managed. Then allocation. So how do you allocate your funds across your company to make sure expenses are paid, you're still making a profit, you're paid, taxes are paid, everything is good, right? So that happens with allocation. And then finally at the top, you've got the profit. So knowing your numbers and reports to see, are you profitable? How much are you profitable? What are the key factors that determine your profitability? And how does that affect, your estimating and some of the other things that happen earlier on before it kind of reaches that bottom line and reports of your bookkeeping. So making sense? You see how this is, it's not complicated, but it's hard to implement. And there's some very key things that we're going to go over today that will really make a huge difference for you in your business. So first thing we're going to start with is manage. So I mentioned earlier how when business slows down, you can get into those cash crunches and really be in a tough place. Like, where's the next, paycheck coming from? Where's, what's the next project? And it can be really scary. But there's also an inverse side to this where when you get really busy, if you are not structured in the right way, you can actually have just as big a cash crunch by when you're doing really good as you can when you are slow. And if you've ever had a lot of sales and then realized, I don't know where all the money is because the bank account is short, most likely you don't have a good deposit and invoicing system to make sure that the cash flow is steady. Because if you start a bunch of projects, you're putting out labor, you're putting out materials, you're paying for all the stuff from your company, and the bank account dwindles down and you're like, wow, I thought we are super busy. We should be making tons of money. We should have a lot of money in the bank, but it's not there, right? And this is probably what has happened. So first thing I'm going to talk about is accounts receivable. Whenever you're dealing with a client, you want to make sure you always have money in the bank from that client. So the client should be funding their project. You should not be funding your project. So put your hand up right now and let me know. I will not fund my clients' projects. My clients will fund their own projects. Please, make that whatever you want to call it, make that proclamation right now and let me know that, because this is a huge issue. And again, I've lived all of this stuff and learned the hard way, and I'm hoping that you can take this and implement it and realize that it's not hard. But essentially, you should have a deposit from the client. So whatever makes sense for the project, depending on the project size, it could be 10, 20, 30, 50%, even if it's a smaller project or something like that. So you should have a large sizable deposit that stays in the bank and you can pull against if needed, but that is your money in the bank. And then you should always invoice before that amount of money is used up by your company. So client wants to build a new home. Fantastic. Deposit 10% or whatever. Let's say it's a $100,000 deposit. You put that in the bank. Now you are going to have to mobilize your people, your materials, maybe, if you're in the planning stage, paying for whatever, maybe permits or design, estimating services, whatever it may be, before they reach that, like you should be invoicing regularly, and your invoices should never exceed that 100,000, so that you always know that if they defaulted on their payments or they're late on their payments or there's become some sort of altercation for whatever reason that they don't want to continue or whatever happens, there's a million and one reasons why a project can stall out. I hope that never happens. And typically speaking, it's a worst case scenario. But at least in that situation, you know that they're not going to be holding money over your head to get some stupid little detail done or to, whatever the case may be. Always have money in the bank so that you can then always be cash flow positive. And that way you can take on as many projects as you can possibly manage. You don't want to burden yourself with taking on 10 projects if you got, no project managers or one project manager and you can't facilitate that. But money should never be the issue for taking on new projects because the client is always paying for all the projects. So not to be a dead horse here, but I hope that makes sense and you realize how important that is. Do not fund your client's projects. All right. Point number 2 here is weekly invoicing process. So you should have a weekly cadence of invoices going out. Even if you don't want to invoice your client weekly, you should be running a weekly process. Your admin, your bookkeeper, whoever is going to be in charge of this, you approve it before it goes out. They can, ask you questions if they have questions, or maybe you or the project manager has to give them a heads up of like what needs to be invoiced for. But every week there should be a check, like what do we need to invoice for, which clients, and probably do that on Monday or Tuesday so that the invoice can go out on a Thursday, and ideally you get paid by Friday, maybe the following week. Set that expectation with the client. Hey, we will invoice you potentially every week or every 2 weeks. We like to do this to make sure everything is upfront and you know what's being done on your project, and so that we can have enough money to continually give you an excellent service and whatever, right? So just make it a policy. If a client's like, if you have big milestones and the client has to pay out, $100,000 or $200,000, that's a little bit of a like big payment for them, right? Even if they're funding with a bank or it's like they have the money, but it's simple for them to get it to you, they're going to be looking through that invoice. They're going to be checking it. They're going to make sure it's going to feel difficult for them to let go of like $200,000, even though they know that you're doing an amazing job and everything. Some clients, they'll just pay you, no worries. But generally speaking, whereas if you're invoicing every week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and you're invoicing them for like 15,000 or 20,000 or whatever it may be, that's a lot easier for them. Like, no problem, send off a check, 10, 20, 30 grand, whatever, right? It's not a big thing. They're probably not going to go through with a fine tooth comb, like, hey, have you actually completed this? What's this? I don't understand this, right? It's not as big a deal. And you kind of, not as they train them, but they get in the habit of like, oh, every 2 weeks, there's an invoice. It's generally around the same size, and they send it to you, right? So that improves your cash flow, that improves the client communication. Any disputes as well that may be coming up with the invoice is going to come up regularly, right? If you're invoicing like you've just completed the foundation on a project and it's a $200,000 bill, and now they've got a dispute and you're moving forward with framing and everything else, much better to have that dispute come up in the first 1, 2, 3 weeks of you starting the foundation than at the end of the foundation. And now you want to keep the project moving and not delay it over, some misconception or whatever with the client, right? So increase the cadence of your invoicing and have that process dialed in, and keep the payments small, as I mentioned, but keep it simple. They should have multiple ways of paying you if needed. Yes, you're probably going to want a check or a bank transfer or something like that, but make it super easy for them to pay you so that you want to remove any signs of friction whatsoever. So, is this making sense? Can you see how just these simple processes and simple like understanding of accounts receivable can really change how you manage money in your business? And then late payment process. So heaven forbid that you get to the end of a project or you're in a project and then they don't want to pay or can't pay, whatever it may be, you should have some sort of a late payment process. Typically this is something where you will let's say they owe you $50,000, then they can't pay for whatever reason. Maybe they extended all their credit cards and they're just like they got some medical bills or whatever. Million one excuses, right? Say, okay, no problem, how about we pay 10,000 over the next 5 weeks, or maybe we do 10,000 or 20,000 a month for 3 months or whatever, right? Break it into a simple couple payments. If they get on a payment plan and they can't complete it, obviously you want to be lenient with them, but there's going to be a time and a place, and you should have this documented of at what point in time, how long until you actually have some sort of, collections letter, or send this to some sort of collections agency in order to, put a lien on the house or whatever you may need to do in order to get paid. But it's important that they pay you, obviously. All right, accounts payable. So that's the money coming in for accounts receivable. Accounts payable is the money going out. I like to have a bi-weekly cadence with this. So every 15th and 30th, or 15th and maybe the first of the month and 15th, whatever, twice per month essentially is a good cadence. And you go through the payable, any subcontractors, materials get paid, whatever it is. And again, you set all these expectations. Everyone should know exactly when they're getting paid or when they need to pay and all that stuff. So have a document with that expectation with anybody new that you're working with. And then essentially make sure that you are doing that bi-monthly, sending out payments. If a subcontractor sends an invoice in, let them know they get paid the next pay period or whatever it is. So if they send it on the 14th, they're not getting paid on the 15th, they're going to get paid on the 1st. Or if you have 30 days, net 30 days, it would maybe be 2 pay periods, depending on what the cadence is for you. So salaries and subs, as I mentioned, and then have some sort of approval process, especially if you got general or project managers. Project managers should be approving payments for subs as well as materials, and you should have a process in place for this. So if XYZ Electric is sent you an invoice, that invoice should then get in front of the project manager, and they should say, yes, XYZ Electrical has completed this work and you can go ahead and pay that invoice, right? The project manager is going to be the one that's going to know closest, to the front line here as far as, are they completed? Are they done? Maybe there's like leftover stuff that they couldn't complete, or they're waiting on some sort of material or whatever, what have you, depending on how big of a deal it is. Maybe they, don't approve it, or this often happens. I wouldn't say often, but this does happen, and, caught it before, where they've invoiced for something and the pricing is wrong compared to what they estimated, or the proposal that they sent you, right? So typically it's an honest mistake. Just, some numbers got mixed up or whatever, but little things like that where you could be paying extra, thousands of dollars just for a minor mistake, and it got paid because no one was actually, checking the payment amounts before they went out. So have an approval process. And if you are the bottleneck where you need to approve every invoice, every payment that goes out, you need to get this into a process and then get your people to handle this for you. If you don't have a project manager or site superintendent, then you will probably still need to be able to do this, but it should be a very easy, like, checks and balances thing for you, not a you need to look into all the small details kind of thing. Money needs to flow, and you need a process to make sure it flows in and out of your business. And it's doing that often and correctly at the end of the day. All right, making sense? So manage, that's like the systems in and out process. That's the foundation, if you will, of your financial system. Now we're going to move on to allocate. This one is very, very simple, why I love it so much. And it's a concept that I learned from Mike Michalowicz from Profit First. If you're not familiar with Mike, he wrote a book called Profit First. I would suggest put that book on your reading list. And that book will go into like a lot more story and detail of like exactly how this whole system kind of works. But the concept's very easy, and the implementation is also quite easy to get into place. So essentially, the way the allocate works, the allocate system, is that you're going to have one main business account. This is your income account. So all income into the business, all the sales, any money that comes into the business goes into that one bank account. From that bank account, nothing goes out except to the other bank account. So you don't pay expenses from that account. Nothing else happens from that account. But from that income account, you then allocate money to your other bank accounts. So you're probably going to, at the end of the day, have at least 5 bank accounts. You may even have more, depending on the size of your business and how things are structured. But for now, just keep things simple. 4 to 5 bank accounts is what you need. The first bank account you're going to need is a profit bank account. So profit first means you need to know and be allocating how much of this money that comes in. So let's say you got $100,000 in your bank, your income account. What percentage percentage of that is going to be profit. Well, 5%, that's going to be $5,000 that goes into your profit account. Then you're going to have your owner's compensation. So this is your salary as an owner. And if you are collecting salary and on payroll, then this owner's comp account, you may not need this necessarily because you'll probably just take that from business expenses. But if you have a separate, like especially if you got a few directors or co-founder kind of thing, then you may want to be putting, allocating money to the owner's comp so you know how much you're paying all the directors or owners of the business. Taxes, super important. One of the biggest pains in the world is getting to the end of the year, start of the new year, and realizing you got a big tax bill you got to pay, right? So, and not having money in the bank to pay it. So the taxes account is for this. You know that you're going to pay, it could be sales tax, could be your business taxes, whatever sort of taxes you are responsible for paying. You need a percentage of your revenue that goes into a taxes bank account so that whenever that happens, whether it's quarterly, semi or annual, whatever it may be, you can take that money and pay your taxes, and it's super easy. This will also help. The beauty of this allocation account is it helps you to not have the temptation to spend all the money in your account. If you just have one bank account or two bank accounts and you don't know where money should be, you're just going to spend money, right? If there's $40,000 in the account and it's like, I need a new truck, you can go buy a new truck, right? But with this system, your money is going to be allocated, so you're going to know exactly what is what. And then the final account that you're going to have is your expenses. So this would be for your new truck or whatever. This is like all the wages for the company, any labor. This is subs, materials, overhead expenses, all whatever expenses the company has besides those first three accounts, which are separate. That's going to be by expenses. And these percentages are just general percentages. They're not specific. Your business will function differently. If you are really struggling now, maybe profit is like 1 or 2% because you got to pay off debts or whatever. And then over time you ratchet it up. So maybe, 3, 4, 5%. Ideally you get up to like 10% profit, right? Same with owner's comp. If you are a very small business, owner's comp maybe 20, 30%, especially if you're still just kind of like a one-man show. Whereas if you're running like, $10 million business, the owner's comp maybe, 5% or something smaller, depending on, again, how you want to structure the business. But essentially, this is what you're doing. And I've got a business allocation sheet. So in the chat, go check out the chat. I have a link in there. Click through to the business allocation sheet, and that'll show you specifically the spreadsheet where you can use as to adjust your allocations and quickly put in your number, and it'll tell you how much money to put in your other bank accounts. So I'll go over it kind of at the end of the training today to give you a little visual overview of it a little bit later. But check out the chat. You can go download that. Anybody live can download that right now. So, all right, gonna do a little trivia here. Still with me? I know finances maybe are a little dry sometimes, but hey, money is fun. And having money in the bank is definitely a good thing that you want more of. And this is a way to get there. But unfortunately, a lot of construction is notoriously not very profitable. There is a lot of money in construction, but a lot of businesses really struggle with the profitability. And often it's just not having a good system and not knowing their numbers. So I was checking out some stats the other day, and I'm going to pose this question to you. How many new contractors are still in business after 3 years? So I think there's a study done. It was a little while, like 2015 or 2020, something like that. And they did statistics on new construction contractors that are starting up. And what they found is that after 3 years, which one do you think? 46, 56, or 66%? After 3 years, how many are still in business? It was only 56%, which is atrocious. And a lot of that, I'm sure, is to do with not being profitable and not understanding financials. I know this was a big struggle for me when I started my business. And something I didn't get was, especially when I was still just like kind of on the tools and I started off as a subcontractor, it was pretty easy to make money because I'm on site, I'm working, and I worked hard, right? And you're kind of more or less self-employed and just generating your own income through labor, more or less. Once I became a general contractor, then the game changed. I had managers, I had employees, had different sites, different crews, things like that. And it's very easy for the finances to get away from you, especially when you're like growing and you're getting paid more, you're doing larger projects, and it feels like you have a lot of money. But if you're not watching your statements and your finances and have a good system in place, it's very easy for that money to dissipate. And you're there like scratching your head at the end of the project, wondering like, where'd all the money go? I just did, like $1 million in business and I've got nothing to show for it. So what the hell happened, right? So very important. Average profit margin as well as 2 to 5%, which again is very atrocious. I would say a good healthy contracting business should definitely be in the 10% range for profit margins where you want to get to. It takes time, but you can definitely get there. And I've helped a lot of clients do that as well. All right. So we've done the manage, we've done the allocate. Now at the top, golden egg here is profit. And that's what we want, right? We want to be profitable at the end of the day. We do not want to be losing money, going through all those headaches that I mentioned earlier. So in order to know if you're profitable, there's a number of things you need to do, but one is get clarity on your financial statements. And I'm sure, raise your hand here if you have seen a profit and loss before. I'm really hoping you've been able to run a profit and loss report. Remember one of my early mentors when I was running my general contracting company, we met in person and we were looking through my books and he sat down and he asked me, what's your cost of goods sold? And I had this blank look on my face and he just kind of stared at me and I stared at him and I was like, what? It's like, yeah, your cost of goods, right? Your direct expenses. So needless to say, he told me, okay, this is what you need to do. So we changed the accounts in my bookkeeping software. He's using QuickBooks, and he's like, I'm gonna go grab us a coffee. I got a few calls to make. You sit here and organize the accounts, and we need to figure out your cost of goods sold so we can figure out your overhead and whatever else, right? So, anyways, I sat down, organized it, and after that, I then discovered and realized how important this is and why. I don't know why this is such a common thing for a lot of contractors. Like even a lot of clients of mine, when I start with them, do not have a proper cost of goods structure in their accounts. And there's things in their operating expenses or that should be in cost of goods sold and vice versa. So really getting this straight is very important because later we're going to use this in your estimating to make sure you're starting your estimates profitably before it ever shows up in your books later that you're not. All right, so cost of goods sold, these are direct expenses, things like labor, subs, materials. So anything that you can directly tie to a project, materials for a project, whatever, any sub trades that are worked on the project, labor, your guys, all that kind of stuff needs to be in the cost of goods sold. And as you can see from this, this is just an example spreadsheet, very simple. We've got, $1 million in sales, cost of goods is $600,000. So gross profits are $400,000. So this is obviously fictitious. This would be a really well-run company for a construction company. Not that you couldn't be there, but anyways, those are cost of goods sold at the very top there. And then everything below that is going to be your operating expenses, what they have here, but really it's your overhead expenses. So overhead is indirect expenses. These are all the things you cannot tie directly to production, cannot go directly towards a job. One of the common things that gets mixed up between the two is wages. So cost of goods sold, if you have project managers, even like an estimator, they should be allocating their time to specific projects, and that should go into labor as a direct expense, because without them, the project's not getting done and they need to, that expense goes into the project and should be in your estimate as well. Now, obviously, they're going to do some things that are not always, they're not going to be 100% allocated to projects all the time because you're going to probably have management meetings or there's going to be things outside that they need to go for training or whatever else that aren't specific for a job. But generally speaking, 80-90% of their time will be towards working on a job. Overhead expenses, things like your administration, your own salary, unless you're actively managing projects, your own salary as the business owner means that you are an overhead expense, essentially, right? Typically vehicles are an overhead expense as well because the vehicle is not tied to any specific project. If you have equipment that sits on site and is allocated to a project, then the equipment would be cost of goods. But typically speaking, your vehicles to drive around wouldn't be, as well as, utilities, office space, rent, all those kind of things going to your overhead. So why is this important? Why do we need to know the difference here? The first thing is knowing your overhead as a margin, and then also knowing the difference between margin and markup to get to your estimating, because without knowing your numbers here, it's hard to estimate accurately and profitably. A lot of contractors will just kind of pick a markup that they think makes sense for competition. Markups are 15% or 20% or 30%, whatever it may be. And then you kind of price your projects competitively with the market. This is a bad way to do business because you are not the other businesses. You may have less overhead, you may have more overhead, and you should price your projects according to how you're going to be profitably in business. And if you cannot price projects that you can sell and be profitable on, then your business is not viable and you should not be selling those jobs to begin with. So don't be buying projects by lowering your prices and then being unprofitable. It's not helping anybody. You need to let that go and you need to price profitably. And if you can't sell projects, you need to work on your marketing and your sales, and maybe your ideal client or something else needs to change in the business in order to get profitable. But take off the rose-colored glasses and look at your profitability and what's actually happening here. So the 2 steps to this is figure out your overhead. So whatever your full overhead is here, this one, the operating expenses, it shows $223,000 is their operating expense. So you take that divided by the revenue, which is AKA sales, divided by a million, and that would give you 22.3% overhead. So this company that, in the spreadsheet here, ABC Limited, is running at a 22.3% overhead margin. Now, if they are estimating and marking their estimates up by 25%, they are losing money because a margin is different than a markup. And that's why this is so important to know. I have worked with businesses, and like first or second conversation that we have, like a coaching call, is we look at their books and we determine what is your overhead. And very often I find out that commonly overhead for contractors is anywhere from 10 to 20%. I've had clients who are even higher, but they're super profitable, even though they have higher margins because they're pricing accurately and the projects that they're doing facilitate that. Anyways, but I had this the other day with a client. They were running roughly, I believe, around a 10% margin for their overhead, but they were marking up their estimates by 15%. Well, 15% markup, I believe, is about a 13% margin or somewhere in there, 12 point something percent margin. So that means they only have a potential of making 2 to 3% profit from what they're estimating. And that's if they've estimated accurately and nothing goes wrong in the project, right? So that is very evident once you do that calculation why you may not be making any money if you don't know these numbers. So if you have, 10, let's say you're running a 10% overhead and you need to mark up by 25% in order to get a 20% margin. The difference between markup and margin is markup goes on top. So if I had $1 million project that I'm estimating, I mark it up by 25%. That's $1.25 million project, and that is equal to 20% margin. Now, if my overhead is 10% and I want to make 5% profit, that leaves about a 5% spread for overages, whatever, things going wrong, and inaccuracies in the estimating. If I'm running a 15% overhead, then I would be, and I want 5% profit, it's not going to happen, right? Because almost never does a project complete, exactly on budget. Typically, there's always some sort of overages, something takes longer or goes wrong. So is this making sense? I know I'm like dialing to the numbers, but that's why it's so important to understand your financial statements. And obviously there's a lot more that you can really get into the nitty gritty here, but I just want to nail this concept home that you need to know your overhead as a margin, and you need to know then how much markup you need to apply on an estimate to be profitable and still leave at least a 5% gap for contingency, overages, whatever it may be, unless you have an additional 5% contingency already with the client or something like that. But even so, really important, super like by the books here. And this is why you may not be profitable, even if it looks like you are. Making sense here? All right, good stuff. So as you can see, these 3 concepts that I've provided here, your money, this is your money map. So manage, make sure you got money in the bank, allocate, your expenses are covered, specifically without having to like go through a big budget. You already know if you're running out of money in your expense account, you need to allocate more, make more money, or something needs to change, right? So that's where those allocations come in super important, because it's very easy at a glance of your bank statements. Oh, something's off here. I need to change my allocations. The business is not operating the way that I would like it to. So getting intentional with your allocations. Then finally, profit. So knowing your numbers, so that you can clearly make decisions and you are really aware of what's going on from a financial standpoint of your business. So, making sense for everybody? Right on. All right. So, I appreciate you joining the training today. I'm going to be going over that allocation sheet. Like I mentioned, give you a quick overview of how that works in a second here. I want to invite you to the contractor growth system. So, this is a program put together. It's specifically for contractors, general contractors who want to systemize to scale their business. And this was the program we want to build. We want to get those systems in place that enables you to scale and grow your business without all the stress, without all the financial burden and hard times that I've been through and I don't want you to go through. And I see so many other contractors struggling with. So some of the areas that you're going to get in the program here, it's a 7-week program. Every week is a different training as well as different set of documentation and plug and play systems that you get for your business. So we're going to work on the first 4 weeks are kind of all on the money side. So lead gen, sales, profitable estimating, like I mentioned. So getting the right templates and make sure that your estimates are at a really high level. And then financial systems, I've given you kind of the big overview today and a few very key concepts to help you really manage well and get that money map in place. But of course, there's a big depth in the actual process of like, how do you do the invoicing, the SOP for it, how to manage the finances, all of that kind of stuff we provide for you in the program. And then the remaining 3 weeks, we go over project management, mainly schedules and quality control are the big ones. Firefighting, elimination. So this is how to get your team on board, how to hire the right team. So you're not having guys that constantly you need to babysit them or that just show up and are warm bodies. So they're not coming to you all the time for decisions and you're putting out fires nonstop for your people. And then scalable planning. So once we have all these systems in place and we provide them to you and you implement them, now what's the plan moving forward? How do you scale? How do you use these systems to grow profitably and successfully over the next month, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years out. And through the entire program, you are going to get support and feedback from myself. So if you want feedback on your marketing, your systems, issues, problems that are coming up, we're going to support you. You're going to get feedback on your specific business and help you implement all of this stuff. This is really like an amazing program. It's specifically for general contractors. So this is only for general contractors. You are going to be in a group of contractors that's going to go through the program together. Who I'm looking for is growth minded. So you need to be growth minded, positive people that want to change and make a difference. If you're tired of working, too much and making too little. I had someone comment on one of my videos the other day that they were giving up on the general contracting after 10 years because they were tired, stressed, not making any money, and they were done with it, right? I know lots of very successful contractors that have amazing businesses and make a lot of good money and have good systems and processes and people in place. You can get there, but it is not easy. And that's why I've created this system to help you and this program to get you there. So if you're tired of working too much for too little, this is for you. And if you're ready for real change, not some patchwork, not some band-aid, not a bunch of, nice sounding things, you want to actually put your head down, get some stuff in place and change how you run your business to get the real results and get you where you want to go. And the reason you started your business in the first place, that freedom and the financial ability to do what you want. This is for you. Why this program? So why did I create this program? Why should you, care about it or want to join it? I created this program because, like my coaching company, I've been through the hurdles, the heartache, the downtimes, the $0 in the bank accounts, all of that really stressful stuff. And I've seen how important systems and processes and just the knowledge and mentorship is so important to the construction industry. I want you to be successful, and I've got the tools and the templates and the knowledge to get you there. So I've created this program specifically for you to get you there. Why you should care about this program or why now? The longer you wait, the longer it's going to take. Essentially, you can maybe get there on your own, but instead of spending the next 10 years trying to figure this out, why not rely on the systems, the processes, the documentation, the knowledge that I've accumulated and created in my company. We've done this with dozens of contractors. We've taken the best of the best, streamlined it all, and provided it's going to be intense. It's 7 weeks. This is normally like probably a 6-month process, and we're condensing it into 7 weeks. And that's why we're doing that plan with you to help you get this in your business, implement it. I've taken the top 20% of the most impactful, results focused, easiest to implement systems and provided them for you on a silver platter. so you can take this, run with it, and finally get really quick results in your business and build those systems that you so desperately need if you're going to grow, and especially if you're going to scale. So what's actually included, like what does the program look like? It's 7 weekly classes, walking through systems. I'm going to help walk you through this and guide you the whole way. You're going to get recordings of all the lessons. So you can, like I said, there's going to be a lot of information, a lot of like implementation, but we're going to be moving together as a group. And in between those weeks, we're going to be moving the goalpost along to get you to that touchdown at that end, and make sure that you're successful. You will get recordings of all the lessons, so you can always refer back to it and go back and take away from it whatever you need. On top of all of that, you're also going to get access to the RSC University Foundations. So this is a number of online courses and templates, a bunch of different stuff you're going to get access to do kind of on your own as well outside the program, that you'll have lifetime access to, and you can continue to utilize to grow your business. If you've ever taken any of our courses or even our events like this, I'm always providing templates, worksheets, checklists. I put the resources in your hands so you can modify it, use it, customize it, run with it, plug and play in your business. You don't have to build all this from scratch. We've already done that. We've got franchise grade documentation systems to build out general contracting companies. That's how we systemize businesses so quickly, is because we built all this stuff out and we know how to implement it. And we're going to give that all to you in all those different areas that I mentioned before. And then to top it all off, you're going to go through this program, and then we're going to give you a one-to-one strategy coaching call. So you're going to get a coaching call with myself, specifically you and me, one-to-one, and work through any gaps in knowledge. I'm going to review your implementation plan, make sure everything is sound, makes sense, and give you specific coaching and mentorship for any challenges, problems, whatever may be happening in your business. So you can get that value on that alone is thousands of dollars. So this is not a learning program. It's not about just education or learning a bunch of stuff. Yes, you will, but that's not the purpose of this. This is an implementation program. As you know, there's a lot of great sounding professors and smart people out there, but they haven't done anything, and the results show. This is implementation. This is for people who want to make a difference and get things done, take action, not about just learning a bunch of nice stuff. You want to go learn something, there's lots of resources, free resources online. Go learn to your heart's content. If you want to implement and get something built in your business that's an asset, and you can make you a valuable business that you can sell later, this is for you. This is a unique opportunity to be mentored by myself, by me personally, and work side by side. So this is a huge opportunity for yourself to work directly. Not everybody who applies will join the program. Like I said, I'm looking for very specific people, and the size is going to be small. This isn't like 20, 30 people sort of large group. This is going to be a very small group of general contractors who are going through this together, who are making real change in their business. So this sounds like something that will make a difference in your life. And I believe if you're a general contractor, this is a no-brainer. It's going to be huge. Join the wait list. We will be opening this for enrollment when our next program starts. We are going to be running this every quarter, so a program every quarter. And when the doors open, there's only going to be a certain amount of spots available. So if you want to be the first person to get a spot and to get notified about that we're open for enrollment, scan the QR code here and go and join the waitlist. You'll also be getting an email after this with a link. You can go then, but then get on the waitlist. Go and check out the website here. It'll have more information. You can get more details if you need more details, but this is a phenomenal opportunity. So definitely go get signed up. It's an amazing program, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done. And this is, like I said, I've put a lot of time and energy into getting to this point, and now I've taken the best of the best, put in this program, fastest, most rapid way to build systems, of specific systems that you're going to need early on in your business. So we get signed up, and I would love to see you join the program. All right, so now I'm going to jump into the business revenue allocation sheet. As I mentioned, we'll take some questions a little bit, after this, and do a bit of Q&A for anybody that's here live. So just hold your questions for a second here. So business revenue allocation spreadsheet, essentially I would do this bi-monthly. Typically, I like to do the 10th and the 25th because, like I said, your accounts payable, you're going to pay materials and subs maybe on the 15th and 30th, or 1st and 15th or whatever. So you distribute your funds 5 days before that, at least a couple days before that typically, so you got money in your different bank accounts. But let's say you've got 100,000 sitting in your bank account. You can see here, it's going to tell you exactly how much to put in all your other accounts. So 5% can go to profit, 10,000 goes to owner's pay, 10,000 to taxes. I also like to have a charity and donations. For me, you don't need a separate bank account necessarily. You could just include this in your taxes. You have like a taxes and donations account and just put, 12% into there or whatever. You do you. For me, business is about purpose and being able to provide for others, whether that's charities, organizations, your church or religious institutions, family that may be or what have you. Is it helps elevate the business so much when it's not just for yourself. Obviously, it's super important to be taking care of yourself, but that you're able to provide for other people. So that's what that is. And then operating expenses is going to be the bulk of the money that gets allocated. So this is the money that would go into your account. And then there's also this charity allocations down here. So if you've got, a couple different charities that you want to provide money for, it's going to take this amount in here from the charities and donations and just split it. Let's say you want, 50% to go to, this organization, 30% to go here, and then maybe 20% for whatever else, right? And you can obviously add more. You can also change all of these. So let's say you right now are in a ton of debt or finances are like crazy, and it's like I can't really be putting extra money aside for profit right now. Maybe you bump this down to 2 and you bump this up to like 76%, right? So you can play with these allocations, and over time this is going to get more dialed in for your business. Also, as you grow and scale, if you're doing like $1 million now and 2 or 3 years later you're doing $2 or 3 million, your allocations are going to change and you're going to need to adjust this as you grow. When you get started, just kind of do your best, whatever you think is best, and then from there you can allocate differently, depending on how financial management of your business goes. So hopefully this made sense. I hope this has really given you a lot of clarity on your financials, and you can see how just some very key concepts and a little bit of a change of like how you manage your money and accounts can really make a huge difference. Make sure you're profitable at the end of the day. Make sure you're estimating accurately and at a high enough markup slash margin percentage to really make a difference in your business. So thanks for participating in the Contractor's Edge. We have this every month. It's the first Wednesday every month, and I'll see you at the next one next month. Take care.